I don't know why I took the shoes off just by instinct. In hindsight, I think it was to get connected to the ground. This idea, I would like to have something on the feet that's not like a shoe, that's not so clumsy, not so protective, not so stiff, that allows me to feel the ground like barefoot. I continued to study about the feet, about the cultures, about footwear, why Indians in North America was using so thin shoes. I was trying to put all into my brain. This was spring 99. And as a student, I really struggled to produce the prototype. I spent the whole first 4 or 5 months to produce a half pair of the first 5 finger. And I made it out of old bathing suits with a lot of stretchable material. And with that, I tried to assemble something. So I stitched it onto my own feet. And I started to walk on a trail. Suddenly I felt this is not just in your brain. This is something that has a value.
Welcome to the Restore to Explore podcast from your soulmates at the Foot Collective. We're on a mission to empower humans to restore their natural health and function from the ground up, so we can all explore movement and life with freedom and confidence. This week's episode is brought to you by the TFC Soulmate, your ultimate all-in-one restoration and exploration tool. Made from cork, TFC Soulmates are an eco-friendly, lightweight and durable mobility, balance and foot training tool that can be used as a massage roller, foot roller, balance beam, a slant board, and even includes 2 toe resistance bands. Every TFC Soulmate comes with access to an in-depth training manual with guided routines from TFC health professionals to make improving foot function and balance fun and accessible for all ages and abilities. For 10% off your Soulmate, head to thefootcollective.com and use the code R2E. That's R, the number 2, E at checkout. You'll find the details in the show notes. Robert, thank you so much for joining us on the Restore to Explore podcast. Before we jump into who you are, can you tell me where you are right now? We can hear the birds chirping in the background.
Yeah, I'm just close to my home, a little bit up to the mountain because I think it's more peaceful to stay out in the nature instead of being trapped in a building. And yeah, that's my start of my journey.
Where are those mountains? We're in Italy, aren't we?
We are in the most north province of Italy. It's called South Tyrol, and we are a German culture. The people around us here, it's German mother language. And yeah, we are living in the middle of the mountains, and for me, that's a beautiful thing here.
Beautiful. So for people who don't know who you are, a little bit of context. You're an Italian designer and an innovator, and you really are known for your work in footwear design. But can you tell our audience, I guess, how you fit into this natural footwear and natural foot health picture?
First of all, I consider myself hardly as a designer because I think this is really something related to an industrial, to a consuming world of producing goods, consuming goods. And sometimes I truly struggle with it. Where I come from is something that most of the people in the Western world will say it's an ancient world. I have grown up in a mountain farm right in front of here, where we had little things. We had a lot of work and almost no TV as kids, but we enjoyed so many hours outside, and this gave a big impact on myself. And then I discovered, as a kid going to school and then to high school, what are your interests in life? And I had always been pretty much in nature, but I was attracted by technology, and I still are. So especially mechanical engineering. So I went for mechanical engineering education. But at the age of 18 or 19, I was not ready to go to study. So I decided to go back to work here in the mountains, and I became a logger. So already in the age of 18, big machinery, chainsaws and bringing the timber out of the wood. I was just amazed by how strong machinery can be, and I was always considering nature as, yeah, it's beautiful to be in, but it's weak. Machinery is strong. We are capable of doing big things. And suddenly, 3 years later, I found myself in a design school because we as a family said, yeah, yeah, you are too young to just be a logger your whole lifetime. So what's your interest? I say, yeah, I love to draw more mechanical parts or so, but I love to draw. So yeah, let's go for design school and try it. And so from one day to the other, I was jumping from a completely natural world every day in the woods in a more kind of cultural world of studying, first contact with internet, um, fancy people I have never really experienced to work with them together before. And it was like I had no more roots. I was missing my roots, but as well the time, the first year or so in design school was blowing away my mind. And in that moment, I think I struggled a bit with not having any more the roots to stay outdoor every time of my life. And therefore, every morning before I went to attend school, I went up in the mountain over here. And sometimes I don't know why I took the shoes off just by instinct. In hindsight, I think it was to get reconnected. My body was trying to reconnect in the half hour or hour before moving to school to get connected to the ground more. That's hindsight thinking. I was not aware of it. And already 3 months into the design school, there came this idea. I would like to have something on the feet that's not like a shoe, that's not so clumsy, not so protective, not so stiff, that allows me to feel the ground like barefoot, but without the risk of getting a little hurt. Sometimes it's not big, big problems, but usually the small things on your feet are locking you down for a while. Or also just to be able to move further, faster, and especially with more power. I was 23 years old or something, and you have a lot of power then. And you just want to go blast through rocks and jump from one to the other. And every time I went on the throttle and I was sprinting somewhere, I got hurt. And or I was just trying to walk into the mountains, and after 10 minutes, the pain on the feet was getting so high, the pain level, so the joy was gone, and the struggle came back. So this idea really came really quickly after switching from my rural life into something more cultural. I call it cultural life, yeah. So the
Were
idea
you
has,
someone who, like as a child, were you barefoot a lot? And when you were in that rural life, was barefoot a big part of your life? Or
no,
was it
no.
really just the transition to that more structured city culture that you
I
felt
think
something
so.
deeper inside that you needed to reconnect?
I think so. Because before my life was, yeah, as a small child, I have some picture of my mom struggling to put shoes on. I was already trying to don't have them on as small kid, but normal kids, if you allow them to choose their what they want to have on the feet,
They don't want to wear.
no,
They don't want to wear shoes.
I would say normal kids from the instinct wise, and I had been
Yeah,
an
they know.
instinctive kid, and I still think I'm an instinctive adult somehow. But if you have kids nowadays, they are growing up from the first day with shoes on, with all this kind of cultural box around. Maybe they don't ask even more. They cannot envision what it does means to be barefoot, and that's a problem, I think, as a culture. And but for
Mm.
me, this so as a small kid, no shoes, instinctive. Later on, you get habituated. You do heavy work. I think if you are out there with shovel, if you are carrying loads in the mountains, if you are working with chainsaws in the
You
woods.
need protection.
Yeah, you would never have the idea to do it barefoot, even though later on, sometimes today, I'm in five fingers when I fell a tree. Okay, I do it, but it's not if you do it as a profession. It's just if you have time, you can be really careful. You can do everything, almost everything barefoot, but it's not the work. So I had not this kind of
Not when you're
approach.
developing the skills.
No,
Yeah.
no.
You need to have a bit of confidence swinging an axe or a chainsaw before you go doing that barefoot.
I mean, we are mountain guys here. Listen, also today, if you are around barefoot, they are saying you would sprain your ankle, and I know this. This is my lead culture. That's where I come from. Like we as a global culture are supposing you can only run in crash-on trainers. This is still what the majority of people believes. And here comes the point with five fingers. I came from a mindset that said you need to wear heavy boots. If you are going to run, you need to have cushioner trainers. The best thing is to have orthotics made for you and all the kind of things they say. You are not complete as a human. You cannot perform as a human. You need this, that, that, that. And I partially agree. We are living in a world where the natural skills are not always what you have to have in the moment. Sometimes you need to have an extra or something else, but basically for moving my body to run, to move around, I discovered through five fingers that it can do it pretty well. And especially moving around based on your own body skills and capacities. For me, it's just more smile in my face when I do it, much more. And that's a value you cannot measure, but for me, it's the biggest one. And Five Fingers told me the story about Five Fingers told me, okay, we are living in a culture that's so full of proposals and items. They make you do this, they make you do this, and to do this, you need this. At the end of the day, it's not so important. The important thing is you do, and sometimes to try to do it with less, because then you can go closer to how it really feels. And that for me, it's maybe the biggest gift that I got through discovering Five Fingers, the feet, and all the years after with also a lot of hard work or struggle going on. But this is a gift I think I received from the, let's call it invention or discovery of Five Fingers. Yeah.
It's an interesting perspective to take on it. I think it's not until you experience that awareness that you feel from being barefoot and truly reconnect with what it feels like not to be restricted in the micro movements that your feet make, that you can truly appreciate how valuable a shoe that allows your feet to do that whilst being protected can, the power that that can hold. Um, I think personally, like I went on quite a similar journey to you, where as a child I was very comfortable being barefoot, and then fell into a job and I guess a schooling system that restricted my feet's movement and forced me into sort of these casts that meant that my feet couldn't move properly. And it wasn't until I connected with the Foot Collective and came across this global movement through my business partner and good mate Jim, that I really was reawakened to that. And it was that reconnection to the earth that I think it's changed my whole perspective on footwear. And I'm just, I guess, fascinated to hear that you were so young when you had this experience and started going down this path, because 23 is really young to be designing a style of footwear that I think many would say changed the game when it came to the way we look at shoes for so many people. Does it did it
Mhm.
feel like such a pivotal moment when you started thinking about it?
No, no. I think this was spring 99. And as a student, I really struggled to produce, let's say, the prototype, because getting information about the feet, learning a little bit about the feet, how the feet works, what ancient cultures or also nowadays tendencies are doing with the feet, aside the mainstream of how to process footwear, was doable for me. I mean, there had been internet, there had been books. You can get information and maybe also condense information. But it was so hard for me with my fingers to produce a prototype to render the idea. And I spent the whole first 4 or 5 months at school to produce a half pair of five fingers, the first five finger. And I made it out of old bathing suits with a lot of stretchable material and latex, which people uses for movie making, the masks, or for fetish gear. And with that two components, I tried to assemble something on I even didn't had a last a shape to move on, and so I stitched it onto my own feet, and I was really struggling. I wanted to abandon the project at a certain point, and the outcome was somehow this half bear happened to realize in my hands, and it was too fragile to really use it in the outdoors to move around. I just was barely. I was so tentative to put it on because I did put so much work into it, but it was a great, and it's still a great communication piece. If people have seen that thing in summer 99, it was like punching into their face. It was like, oh, what's that? And that opened doors at the end. And through that doors, through that interest that people was so, let's say, negatively or positively shocked by seeing the thing, finally, it arrived in 2002 in Vibram's hands. And that's when the whole story really started to spin towards something to replicate it in prototype stage, and also to then get the vision about making a product out of it, of that idea.
You say there that you almost sort of gave up on this idea. There would have been a lot of people who were looking at that first shoe and going, that's ungodly. That's that doesn't belong on the foot." And it's a conversation we have in our office all the time. Just it still astounds me to this day that people, now that I've seen the other side and I've seen the light myself, are so shocked by the appearance of a five finger, and it really is just a glove for the foot. And we don't, gawk in fear at seeing a glove that is the shape of a human hand on a human hand. So, how did you push through that resistance initially? How did you get the idea out? How did you spread it around the world, and how did it end up with Vibram eventually?
Yeah, so let's divide it maybe in two pieces. The
Mm.
first one, how to came the idea to make a glove instead of a shoe.
Well, yeah.
At, it was from the first I thinking about the idea to have something protective on my feet that allows me to sense the ground as much as barefoot. To my instinct, it was clear it must be a glove, but no ideas how to make it, no ideas why. I just went into school straight the day after the team said, "Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's move on." And I said, "Yeah, we need to make a glove." And my teacher said, "Wow, wow, wow, stop. Nobody's doing a glove for the feet. So why shall why shall we do it?" So I said, "It's pretty clear. It must be a glove." And he said, "No, you need to prove it." So I already was pissed. I don't like that kind of. So, so I went home and I took some stockings, like the really light fabric, really stretchable from women's stockings. And I started to band two toes together, four toes together, and made really, really simple prototypes. And with a stapler, I was putting this stuff together and put it on the feet, and I walked outside there on some stones. And even though every toe separate and only the small one bended to the second toe, the fourth toe, eh, it gave me the idea that something that inhibits this grasping movement of the feet. I didn't knew nothing about the feet really, what it's going on inside and how it's connected to the whole sensory system of the body, and how many sensors at the end are in the feet and what type of sensors. But the feeling was immediately there. That's something that's not that's taking away of the experience. And that's when I went back at school and said, listen, I did this trial and this trial and this trial. And only if we separate each other, the full feeling grasping ability of the feet, which is definitively pretty similar to the hand, but it has
Mm.
different trigger forces and input. The load is different on the feet, but the basic of the forefoot to be able to grasp something and to collect data from that kind of movement and pressures moving on, it's something I think leads to this more information, more connectivity, more awareness what's going on the ground. And that's what I wanted to give back, which I missed in every footwear. And therefore, yes, it's not a scientific test that drove us to really follow the whole long road of doing a toe, a glove for the feet. It was at the beginning an instinct, and then some easy trials, and then for me it was clear. Um, how this came to Vibram was a little bit of that's the second part of your question, correct?
Mm.
Um, this came to Vibram through a project we started already before with a different shoe factory because the manager there has seen the project, the prototype in the hand of my teacher, and they had a business relationship. And he said, "I want to produce it. I want to bring it to the market now." He was felt in love with this crazy thing, and so we started the development. But soon after, maybe 2 or 3 months into the work, we discovered, maybe me as a student less, but they discovered more, this kind of project, it's ways too bigger than what they as a company can even conceive, not just practice or produce, but
Mm.
conceive. So we stopped that kind of first attempt to make it. This was in 2000. And but in the time we worked together, we went to Vibram to ask for, can you make a sole really thin, something following these designs here? And so Vibram got the first sight on the project. Everything stopped. I did other project. I had to finish my study. And in 2002, when I was about to write my thesis, I went back because I never stopped thinking about the project, and I always continued to make sketches, all in the brain, nothing hand really physical. I continued to study about the feet, about the cultures, about footwear, where they, why Indians in North America was using so thin shoes, or why Japanese culture has this stubby kind of footwear. I was trying to put all into my brain, even though it was not an active project at that moment from 99 to 2002. And went back in 2002 to the topic to summarize everything and write a book about it, because that was my thesis work, to put a book together with the knowledge about uh, footwear and barefoot versus footwear. Um, I did ask myself, where's my prototype? Oh, Jesus, I have it in Vibram for 2 years now. They would have thrown it away. I was so upset, but
Oh
that's
no.
me. physical things I tend to forget about, and so I called them and said, listen, I'm the guy who came 2 years ago with that brand for expertise on the zone, and I left some prototypes with you. I know you will have thrown it away, but at least I try to see if you still have it. And they said, yeah, of course we have it again. And why? I said, yeah, I need to do my thesis and I would like to get my prototypes back, therefore. And they said, oh, yeah, of course. But we are interested to follow up with you on the thesis. And if you want also afterwards we have an interest to move it on.
Wow.
So I said, okay, I'm pretty happy if you want to help with my thesis, because what they proposed me was the biggest game changer for me in this project. They said, we can do a prototype for you, both feet functional.
Wow.
And I was saying, okay, this will be great, because until that point, it was genuine interest. And I continued to walk around in my mountains barefoot as far I got. And it was not too far because you get to hurt and so. But I was saying, okay, if these guys are going to do a prototype for me, I can finally test it really and see if this is all just in my brain or if it really works, because I was
Do
not
you,
clear.
I
Yeah,
was just going to say, do you think if you hadn't have reached out and asked for your prototype back, that it would have progressed? Or do you feel like that was sort of what re-triggered the whole movement? Or were Vibram working behind the scenes anyway?
no, it was not. And I think
No,
they was
wow.
even by that time, they was not aware what kind of bastard they are getting in the house, because this is a game
Not
changer
easy.
in many term in many senses. So not only the easy ones and the successful ones. There's also a lot of difficulties behind. And what I said before, that a company first of all needs to get comfortable about the idea to make something so different. The paradigm shifts really. And later
Mm.
on, you need to reinvent a lot of processes in making this, in selling this, in advocating this, which is not standard business. You cannot purchase knowledge from the footwear industry to make a good foot glove. You, there's
It's a
nobody.
fork in the road, isn't it? It really is a completely different. It's a completely different model. It's a completely different approach. So you're right. None of the marketing, none of the previous approaches to trying to get these onto people's feet and make them for people's feet are the same. It's essentially a whole new business.
Yeah, and I still believe we are more than 20 years later now. We are still in a pretty similar situation. There's a lot
We
of things
are.
to learn still. But that's
Mm.
cool. Otherwise, it would be boring. So, so
So
yeah,
yes, you went to Vibram. They've offered to make you these two prototypes.
yeah, and I finished. I did my thesis book. I had the pictures and some new prototypes in. Um, and then I decided to go for a couple of weeks to go to zoom out, and we went up in a higher region of the mountain to build a small barn above the tree line. Just bringing some stuff up with a helicopter, and the rest all by hand saw and hand working in nature completely. And where we lived on a mountain hut, we only had a cable car to get food in. And so every morning on the cable car, I got breakfast bread and stuff from the local grocery store. And one day the FedEx box was on it with the first pair of five fingers. So five fingers. It was not called five fingers even. It didn't have a real name by that time. So I said, okay, I will leave them here. I go to do my 9, 10 hours of work up there, and then I come back, and then eventually I will try them. So in the evening, I came back after work pretty tired, got a shower, and then put the shoes off the box. And I was saying, this is so ugly. This is really poorly made to design. It's ugly, but let's give it at least a try. It was not this love at first sight. to say so. And then I started to put it on. It was a bit harder at the beginning, but doable. And I started to walk on a trail. And then suddenly I felt in a faster rhythm running on the trail. And soon after, I was just in the middle of the wood running fast. And this was the first time for me I got the check. The check saying, this is not just in your brain. This is something that, at least for my body, has a value. This kind of feeling, I was running, I had been so much in nature with shoes, with light shoes too at a certain point. But that feeling of being connected fully, I, it, I really remember the picture in my mind was being an animal now. A deer at the moment was the picture, the flash you have, and just being able to go so fast but fully connected for nature, for me was like saying, wow, that's something big in for me at least, because it for me business was never a mission, and it's still not a mission for me, unfortunately. But the idea was just there. Okay, this has power.
We wanted to take a quick break from the episode to let you know about our ultimate free foot health resource. If you're listening, you've probably already started the journey towards improving your foot and movement health, but if you're still wearing conventional shoes most of the time, that's anything cushioned, heeled, narrow or rigid, it's kind of like taking one step forward and two steps back. Knowing what shoe is right for you though can be super confusing. That's why we made the Guide to Foot Freedom. We've taken everything our team of foot health experts have learned over the years and synthesised it into one handy manual, packed with all you need to know about unleashing the natural power of your foundation. You'll learn how to understand your feet, the truth about modern footwear, the 5 F's for finding natural footwear, plus a step-by-step guide with training videos to help you assess your foot function and improve it so you can safely and seamlessly transition into shoes that will finally give your feet freedom. The best part is, like I said, it's absolutely free. Just head to thefootcollective.com and click Learn to find the free ebook, The Guide to Foot Freedom. You'll find the link in the show notes. Now back to the episode.
And so you've tried the shoes on, you've gotten to experience them, and what was the process like to then get them to market? Did you have any involvement then in the back and forth with Vibram about redeveloping and improving the prototypes? And what was that journey like to get them to where people could wear them themselves?
Yeah, I think in the good and in the bad, until today, I had a big stake in developing them. And together with all the people involved, they gave their contribute. We had a lot to learn, and we still have a lot to learn about materials, about how to make it, about human feet. Because even now, these days, I'm getting aware how little actually we know in detail about feet, but also about the human body itself or nature itself. Our technology, it's pretty progressed. If you look at what robots can do today and what the information, the whole IT world around us is capable to do, it's pretty amazing. It's outstanding. If you look at other sides of our so-called high culture, we are so stupid, so not connected to basic things we cannot change through technology. Sooner or later you will die. That's the normal thing, circle of life. You will always have your budgets, physical budgets, mental budgets. And it's maybe good to know where you are and what you can do, and use it for the good, for yourself or for what's around, instead of just saying, oh, the Red Bull athlete is jumping 400 meters or whatever.
Mhm.
Or, I need to do it too. Come on, this is our society, which is not connecting or not seeing us in a context, um, and accepting there are limits. We are thinking there are no limits, but oh
Mm.
yeah, there are limits, and I think the part of the natural movement, because I would not always just say it's about feet, about barefoot shoes, or whatever. It's really about connecting the whole thing. Because if you connect more to the ground by the feet, you also are maybe getting more interested to connect on more senses to who we are and how we live and how the things are working in nature to make us more happy. This kind of grounding is really, let's say, not related only to the feed. It has so
It's a
much
gateway.
aspect. Yeah, I think so. And to connect it into this technology fast world, it's 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 a challenge, but also a gift, I think, because if you're not connected, if you never look back and say, okay, we are physical people, we need food, we need a shelter, we need love. If we don't or make our lives happen around that, but we only speak about the next car, the next travel, or whatever, um, you're getting lost, or you're already lost. So I think for me, the concept of the idea of five fingers led me to understand a little bit these things, but it's still a journey. And I hope somehow this movement it's helping people to reconnect to the physical side of things instead of just thinking about things and visualizing or living it like a second hand life what other people is doing. For me, honestly, I'm not really interested what other people are doing in sports or activities. I think it's cool sometimes what people can achieve, but the coolest thing I can experience is just open the door, shut the computer and phone down at a certain point, and go out without the phone and just connect it. Get to feel the cold, the power of things, the power of my own body as well the weakness of my own body sometimes. So I think to feel things physically, that's something, that's a mission that became a mission almost for me.
And it is sort of where we went wrong with shoes, I think. As a society, we have been addicted for a long time to technological development and advancement and wanting to improve every aspect of the efficiencies of our lives and integrate more and more technology into what we do. And I think that element is where we went wrong with shoes, is believing that we needed to continue developing this hardware for our feet. And then at the same time, you talk about that that sense of individuality that is grounded in wearing a shoe like Vibram. We look at celebrities or we look at sports stars and we want to be wearing the same shoe as them. We want to have what they have, but the problem is those shoes a lot of the time, particularly with athletes, have been developed specifically for those individuals. And really, when you strip all of that away and you return to a shoe that is the shape of your foot and allows your foot to function how it should function, then it's on you. Um, so yeah, I think you're right. I think it's like the ultimate equalizer, just stripping back the basics and getting into a glove for your feet.
Yeah, I think it should never become a dogmatic approach because I think sometimes to perform things in this more artificial world, you need new tools. You cannot pretend from
Mm.
maybe from our feet or from our body to be happily performing in front of a computer all day long. We have just not the eyes, not the physics for it. These are challenges. Maybe having there a seat that helps you or some kind of training program that helps you can help. Or if you want to really do the marathon under 2 hours as a human, this is a pretty big ask for our body. Or doing ultra marathons every second week.
Hmm.
That's something you can maybe not do with your naked body, because our naked body is made for different approaches, and it can be pretty performant, but the performance is a completely not number related performance. Because if I ran a marathon and I do it with a smile in my face, and the next day I feeling pretty good, or I climbed the mountain up there to the top and coming back down, maybe there are people that can do it much faster. Most likely because they're wearing thick, clunky shoes, and in the downhill they can just go straight down on really long strides. Where my people on being barefooted saying, no, 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 man, this is going to hurt yourself. So make small strides, use your active landing system to absorb the impacts. But I do think in the long haul, my body is still staying stronger, safer, more powerful if I do it tuned in what nature really can do, instead of putting a tool onto it that allows me to go faster. But somehow it's easy to overdo it for the body because it's not reflected. You can train specifically, and some athletes are really good on it, and they make a good compromise in between really high output and still not crashing the not going over the tipping point where you're going to compromise the body or his natural health. But it's a tough ask. So I would say we need to maybe, I will not say see different performance, but yeah, we need to define what for ourselves it's good. When it comes to movement, you need to see who you are when you are having a busy life, a lot of things to do. You maybe cannot do the same things like an athlete who is so focused and so trained for doing a specific thing. So be happy if you can do 30K with a smile on your face instead of aiming to 100K and suffer for it and make the whole thing around you suffer, your job, your family, everything. I mean, we just need to find where we are well balanced and then say, okay, 30K for me, it's a great thing. And not saying I cannot do 100, so I'm not doing anything because it's not worth doing it, you know. So when it comes to footwear as tools to extend the human capabilities, I got the point. I cannot ski barefoot, obviously. I cannot free climb barefoot because I would just not be able to guide the ski or drive the ski, or I would just not go over certain difficulties on a wall. But as soon as I just move, running, walking, I think we have the perfect tool built in. Why should we put clunky footwear on? So for me, there it's really to make the question sometimes, not all the times.
Not all the time, but definitely sometimes.
Yeah, I
Robert,
mean, in the
when
morning, a dream would be if the culture evolves to something. You wake up in the morning and you truly ask yourself, do I need shoes or socks today, or I'm completely fine without for the next half an hour or for the next 2 hours? You just ask yourself, not just by default putting on the socks and putting on the shoes. There are people there sleeping with socks. Come on, I mean, the feet is always constrained. So
yeah, so Vibram put these shoes out to the world. The Five Finger gets released to the world. What was the response like, and what was your involvement in that release? And yeah, I guess how was it to be a part of all that?
Well, we started from our Milan office, which is by definition the creative lab of Vibram, and it opened its doors in 2002, and I was maybe one of the first guys to walk through that door. And so, Milan, it's a fashion-related city, and so the small team there always try to see five fingers, or by their natural way, they are living a fashion city, so they was always seeing it what it's that good for, and maybe how the folks around them would process it, and therefore it ended up in the beginning more trying to be sold somehow as an idea to the fashion kind of side of business. I was completely unhappy, but I was neither in a position or let's say I didn't knew what's that good for other people than me. I knew I just want to go to the mountain and run for the mountain with that kind of. So I don't care about the city. I don't care about others. My thing was there, and I want to make the product better, because to get to the first product from the original idea to the first product, it was actually a huge struggle to bring
Mm.
technicians on board to break the balls of shoemakers. They was habituated to make shoes. They had to look nice, but they don't have to flex nice, and especially they didn't have five toes. It was a lot of hard work to get around that. And when we finally got this first product, I was not entirely happy already in how it performs. But I just knew this is not for the fashion business. But I didn't knew how to make it, bring it to market elsewhere. And so it was an initial struggle. Yeah, it was. And until for our the owner of Vibram himself was always really strongly behind the project. He was, we would call it today, the sponsor of the project. He took it, he brought it to US and saying, yeah, we did it already since a year. We have this kind of prototypes. It's not really getting the interest maybe we expected, or at least we think there could be more. And he gave it in the hand of his CEO in North America. And the guy was saying, yeah, come on, this is not a Vibram product. This is not about sturdiness, grip power. This is just so thin, and I don't think this will go. And but Marco Bamani, the owner of Vibram, told them, I'm the boss. You need to sell it. so um, the story was the CEO of America, of the America market by that time, was a runner for his whole life. And in the mid of his 40s, by that time, he struggled to run anymore because the knee was worn pretty well. And so, many runners, active people, sooner or later will have to cope with it. Um, and so he just did put this five-finger thing, this foot glove on, and try to run, because it was what he would do naturally as an activity. And he told me later, it was such a surprise to do 1 mile without pain and the second mile without pain in a moment where he would not be even able to do it with trainers. And therefore he got a bell ringing in his head. And then soon, somehow, the first shoes made it on the feet of the real barefoot running communities. And there had not been such a thing like social media by that time in 2005-06. We had Facebook, but it was not so completely into the society already. There was no Insta, nothing like that kind of things. There was a lot of people was sharing ideas on blogs. And these barefoot communities, they are not a lot of people, but they had been really vocal to say, wow, this is the first real footwear that gives me the feel and the dynamics of barefoot, better than aqua socks they used before when the ground was getting a little too gnarly to go just barefoot, or they wanted to extend the range. So they use kind of Nike aqua socks or that kind of things by the time. Some specific barefoot brands had already been there, but they always had no toe division. And so with Five Fingers, they said, wow, this is pretty close to what we love to experience when we run. And so we felt that starting as a small movement started by 2006 in 2005-6 in the States. And this was already outstanding, but for me it was no way, guys, no, 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 we need to stop it. And they said, why? I said, if you run, you need to land on your heel and then roll forward. You cannot do this with Five Fingers. That's no heel cushioning. And I was really afraid people will get hurt. My first trip to US, I was watching that people and it was like, oh, come on. You have education. You have now 2 years or 3 years of experience on your own body with Five Fingers. And you was so stupid to believe what the whole society told you from child on, that you need to land on your heel. Only by that moment, I discovered that our body is way smarter than some rules we impose. I have seen that people running on their forefoot or on their midfoot, whatever their physiognomy is, they was not slamming the heel into the ground. And at that point, I understood, even though I was already running all the time on my fore and midfoot, I was not able to read that kind of thing. And that people told me about by just watching them, that we can naturally run without cushioning. We just allow the rest of the body to do more the job, and it can be done really well. And that was for me, oh, great. I mean, this was learning from the first users, and that's when we really started to get grips on the concept. Because before, for me, was blur. It was instinctively, yes, in my mountains I blast through. I go always so fast that I'm automatically on forefoot. I never was putting a question on it. I was never running on road. And then seeing that people or their bodies cope really well with the road running activity, flat, hard ground, in not cushioned shoes, for me it was like, oh wow, this works also here. And these people was healthy runners, and they're a whole big, and that was the first time when I started to conceive Five Fingers not just as a personal interest of yes, it was a discovery, and then it became let's say a development work to make it better, to find out a little bit on the shapes of the feet and how much material to put. But then it became really an idea by watching that people, okay, this maybe has also a future as a product, as a job for me. Before I was never seeing it as an income or something. And by that moment I was saying, yeah, maybe that's potential to spend more time of your life on it, maybe also getting your living out of it. But this was as 6-7 years after the first idea of Five Fingers. So Five Fingers had never been born around a business idea, but around the idea of, yeah, I want to feel my feet and my body on the ground like barefoot. So it was really late it developed for me in a business. So, and also for Vibram, I think this was kind of a gambling on something because especially our owner is a super creative person. And aside the really, let's call it professional soling business Vibram is really known for, there it's a desire to be creative around feet, around how you feel the ground. And that what led to Five Fingers. And maybe really late on, it developed actually in a business too.
Yeah, wow. And you talk about the way that people were running in the shoes, and I think still to this day there is so much controversy around what is the right running pattern and whether we should be forefoot striking or midfoot striking. But I think what is really beautiful about barefoot shoes, and particularly Vibrams, is, and you sort of hinted at it there, is this ability for the body to work itself out. Like if you expose it to the natural inputs from the ground and you start to try and move over that ground with pace, the body will tell you pretty quickly if you're not doing it right, and it will reorganize if you just listen to the signals that it's giving you. Because if you are trying to slam your heel into the ground like you would in a cushioned shoe, you're going to find out very quickly that that's not the way that you should naturally do it when you're in a shoe that is much closer to the ground. And I'm intrigued to hear your perspective on what happened after that shoe started to get some mainstream attention, because there was some controversy around the health benefits of the shoe, and people started getting injured wearing them. People started to blame the shoemakers and blame Vibram for putting this thing out into the world that was causing injuries to people's feet. Can you tell me what happened there? And yeah, I guess how that impacted this whole movement through your eyes.
Yeah, I mean, when these early adopters in the States, let's say, kidnapping this concept for the running, which somehow happened, we didn't have any control from the company standpoint on what's going to happen now. And we just was trying to make the product better around what we saw people is doing, but we definitively was not the owner or the driver of that kind of. It was more like an avalanche. So if you have been in an avalanche, you know you cannot do too much. It just goes. And in hindsight, I can think about a lot of things, but by the time we have not been aware what's going on. So the biggest thing I think what happened was, while the early adopters had already been barefoot runners, they already had a perfectly dialed in body and also movement control about running barefoot. Soon the movement gained momentum towards the point where the apex was maybe with Born to Run, the book released by Chris McDougall, where really a majority of the American runners, and that was more North America, maybe Australia had a little bit of influence because the English spoken world is pretty connected. It started to be really the pill to solve running issues, which you always will have, no matter how. It's a matter how much you run, but tendentially, we as a culture, we are doing too much. If we do something, we do too much, not the right balance for ourselves.
Yeah.
So at a certain point, driven by the positive and genuinely good experiences of the early adopters, a good chunk of regular runners, they have never have been exposed to barefoot running, heard about it in a positive way, and they gave us their $120 or whatever it was for a pair of Five Fingers, asking the pair of Five Fingers to get to that kind of healthy running of the barefoot runners. They already had made the progress of transition. And we was unable by the time to reach a large enough thing through proper communication. And that's a blame that somehow sometimes I take on me, but I also know we would not have been able to do it differently. I wish we would have been in a different position, communication, marketing wise, to say what our owner one time said: don't pay us. Get out there, put billboards on the road, don't pay us with the picture of five fingers on, to ring the bell to people. This is not a bill that fixes your running issues. If you get us and then you go out and run the same amount of distance on the same speed you did on trainers before, you will create a huge crisis for your body, a trauma. It's like if you switch from an unhealthy eating behavior to a healthy diet in one day, just switching completely, you will maybe do something conceptually really good for your body. But if you overwhelm your body with that kind of task from one day to the other, with no preparation, with no idea what you're doing, most likely in many individuals, that shock will create a lot of issues. They maybe are bigger than the issues you had before. And this on many people happened. I think so. And I know by my own experience what it means to go out on the road and run further and faster than you shall do. Whatever, shoes or no shoes. If you go too fast, because the problem with our community or our culture is we have a lot of access to information. And you from the food collective side know how to do it well, the communication. But that means people has access to so much knowledge. But at the end of the day, nobody of us has the patience to invest time and brain power as well as time for building up muscles and tendons and respect that kind of lead time in order to get the best out of it. And therefore, I truly believe doing barefoot shoes or making game changers shall always go with the proper education. That's the takeaway what I got by this avalanche that came over us in the early days in our American operations, especially our American operations. And I still believe this is a huge challenge in our culture to be able to people to tell how important this is, to get aware who you are today. And if you switch something in your gear or in your approach, how to move, how important it is to take it easy, to really listen to yourself, to make the choices they are good for you. And if you are a natural, really elastic young guy with a lot of adaptability still, you can maybe ask for faster progression towards a goal. And maybe if you are older or you have more limits, you need to find your way. And that's the tricky thing in this world. Everybody wants to have quick fixes.
I think in the footwear industry, we're in a really interesting situation. And you mentioned food. It's a really good example. If you change your diet to healthy, organic, natural food, or maybe an even better example is alcohol. If you stop drinking alcohol straight away, you can actually die. your body will shut down because it's become so addicted to the alcohol. But inherently, we know, like with smoking, like with junk food now, that these things are bad for us. But I think what we saw, and we only know those things now because the education is so deeply rooted and so widely spread now about the dangers and the negative impacts of those things, that even if we sort of have a bad reaction after going to healthy food, we still know that the healthy food is good for us. I think what we saw with Vibram was it all happened too fast for that education to reach the masses. And so people want something to blame just as much as they want that pill when something doesn't work. They want to be able to point the finger, and it's not my body that's wrong, or it's not something I did, but it's the thing that I adopted that is to blame for my issues. And I think it's been a pretty big journey for the barefoot and the natural foot health movement over the last 10 years, 20 years or almost now, to try and reverse that avalanche and really win people back over. And I find that's where the Foot Collective and the community that we've built of practitioners and people around the world, and the brands that we've connected with, like Vibram and a lot of other smaller natural footwear brands, there's a real team effort going on here to collectively educate people first. And it's really difficult, like you say, on social media and the way that we communicate these days to get across that nuance. Like, people don't want to watch a video that tells them that this is going to be slow, you're going to have to take your time, you're going to have to stop doing the same, running loads that you were doing before. It's not what people want to hear. But I think we're in a fortunate position now where we have the power as a collective to really educate as many people as we can about the benefits if you do take that approach. And a lot of that comes down to, to sharing stories. And I think we come at it from the Foot Collective from quite a different end to where, Vibram's 5-finger movement really started, where you were getting the purists, the barefoot athletes who, were the early adopters. The Foot Collective, we're really trying to help people who have been in pain and have experienced the negative effects of, 10, 20, 30 years of wearing unnatural footwear. So I think, and I hope that, we're on the precipice right now of really, shifting that paradigm for good around the way people see their feet and they see shoes. And a lot of that, I hope, is because we've been able to educate people more deeply about the benefits. From where you started with your journey and the realization of this being what people need to wear on their feet, the ups and the downs that you've gone on this journey with Vibram, to where the whole movement is at now, does it feel close? Does it feel close to you? Like we're on a tipping point of, I guess, much wider public adoption and understanding around the importance of shoes that let your feet function naturally?
I think it depends on a lot of factors. First of all, there are communities in the world or cultures, they are more prone to open up for kind of this natural approach. Like, let's say, Germany, for me, the culture, sometimes North America, Anglo-Saxon culture, Scandinavia. I don't know exactly about Australia. I think this kind of places have, I call the people there, because I living in the middle in between Anglo-Saxon mother culture and a Latin culture, which is the Italian company I'm working for. And therefore I always see, while the typically, and I know this is creating a box around, which is, it's not trying to create boxes, but typically the more South Latin cultures are staying away from suffering and carrying a burden to try to stay more comfortable, while, let's say, the Anglo-Saxon culture guys are more prone to, okay, it's cold, let's fight it, or it's hard, so let's go for it. So I think in these cultures you have a huge potential to reach bigger masses. And then it comes definitely down to a lot of other factors. If we are moving towards a world where people, through education, but also through things like doing yoga or other kind of deeper connection creating activities, are moving closer to feel the body more and also have the richness to spend time with the body or spend time with your body in nature, then I think the potential to succeed with the natural approach of also in footwear, it's pretty high. If we are talking about people, they are more living in a, let's say, virtual world, or we are going from a pretty wealthy, healthy kind of lifestyle we enjoyed as a generation towards something more harder to survive, then maybe the tendency will also have a hard time because to virtual people, they just consume in a shopping mall. The value of having information from the feed, it's not there, I think. It's there if
Mm.
you move. If you just sit on in front of a screen, what's the feed for? If you have to struggle to make a living because you have 2 or 3 jobs and you fall into bed after that completely crashed or even cannot afford to go outside there, you're just trapped in the city or something, and have no ways to experience your body. For that people it's not related. They have different struggles or goals to cope with. So I think it really depends where you think the world. It's not all the same people having the same
Mm.
opportunities like maybe we have, and that's something we have to respect. I think I do believe basically there's a big value in connecting yourself back to nature, to your own body's capabilities. But not everybody in this world, this 8 billion or how many we are, maybe has the luxury also to be able to focus and spend time on something, even though it's worth, in my opinion.
Yeah, well said. I hadn't really thought of it from that perspective, but yeah, I'm really glad that you bring that forward because you're right. It, it is going to be so different for so many people, and yeah, I guess I'm just very grateful that you came up with that idea one day to try a glove for the feet because I know personally I wouldn't be in the job that I am in if you hadn't have done that.
I
The
think,
reason,
Mike, honestly, I think Five Fingers is a really visual product in a bigger stream of movement. And therefore, I think the movement, the tendency had already been there before Five Fingers. So therefore, it somehow it would have happened anyway. Five Fingers is just really extreme in how it looks, but also extreme in how it works because there are a lot of sandals. They are looking pretty normal. A lot of barefoot shoes. They are looking pretty normal, but they have more wider toe box and neutral setting. But when it comes really to feeling the ground, I think the glove concept it's a far kind. It's like a race car in the whole thing, and no compromises. Let's say for me, this is. I mean, I tried so many good barefoot shoes, natural footwear, and in some occasions I really enjoy them because they are just enough for that moment. But if for me in the mountains or in more demanding situations, I want to have it really game on, spot on, a foot glove that properly fits. For me, it's just that step more, that gear more, that's closer to barefoot, where I really can lean onto it and push my body fully. And therefore, I think yeah, it's an extreme product, but there are so many people working on product side, on education side, on it, that I think it's not just Five Fingers alone that led to this kind of natural footwear kind of approach. This had been already here. So
I think if we'd never seen a Formula One car before and we happened to spot one driving down the street one day, we would probably think it looked like a very hideous car and a bit of an abomination, but it is the epitome of performance, and we only think that they look really cool and powerful because we have, grown up with seeing that type of vehicle develop. And so, I think it's just a matter of time before we start looking at shoes that are shaped exactly like feet as being respected for what they are. And that is, the ultimate sort of embodiment of human performance for the foot, I believe. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us and for riding through the couple of technical glitches we had with you sitting on the mountainside and me in our office in Brisbane, Australia. But it's been an absolute pleasure to chat, mate.
Yeah, that's on my side too. Thank you, Mac. And if whenever you have a trip to Europe in mind and you are not completely locked in, so let me know. I think the mountain is still here. So I would really enjoy to make that kind of happen. Because
I'd love that.
what we maybe did, I mean, we didn't cover so many topics, but one of my biggest things I always really like to do whenever I have time is to go with people into nature. When I have the opportunity with my own family or with friends or whoever I can take to nature, it's always such a blast to experience about feet, body, movement over there, and it's just fun. It's just a good time to share together. So whenever you come up to Europe and you have a day or two, let me know in advance so we will try to organize something.
Count me in.
Thanks for tuning in to the Restore to Explore podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, we'd really appreciate you leaving a review wherever you're listening. That's the best way to support us and to help us reach more people. If you're after more free TFC education or training, looking for any of our TFC tools, natural footwear discounts, or you want specialized guidance on your foot health journey from a trusted TFC health professional, head to thefootcollective.com. All of the important links are in the show notes of the episode.